Hey y'all, welcome to the Coyote Trapping School Podcast. I'm your host Chris Pope, and this episode is brought to you by Conserv Lures, the most trusted baits in trapping. If you need bait, lure, or any kind of other trapping supplies, Conserv can set you up. Go to their website, KAATZBROS.com. Cots is kind of not phonetically, not always easy to spell, so I thought I'd spell it out for you to make sure you can get there. But go check them out. See what you may need last minute for trapping season, as it's upon us, and they can get you fixed up. Also, one thing that I haven't mentioned in a while, but if you're new to trapping and you're wanting to get started as quickly as possible, I have a Trapping Academy course that is online. It's all online, video based, that walks you through step by step from what traps do you need, how do you need to set those traps up, and then how to set those traps for specifically coyotes and predators, and what to do as that progresses through, catching a coyote, skinning it, the remake, everything from start to finish. It's in an organized fashion so that you can go through video by video and learn how to catch a coyote, and with that you're going to learn how to catch gray foxes, raccoons, possums, skunks, bobcats. All that's going to go along with it. And I've also got a couple of modules. There's a whole set library of the various kinds of sets that you can make for different predators, as well as a otter trapping module. So if you tie in there, you want to try to catch a few otters too, that's in there, and more to come, and that is. So that's that'll be linked below. Originally that was called my Coyote Trapping 101 course, but now I call that my Trappers Academy. So I'll put a link below, but you can go to coyotetrappingschool.com and look for that Trappers Academy tab, and you can go join that. That is a paid program, but like I said, it outlines everything that you need to do in a concise fashion. It's not like what a lot of us do on YouTube of jumping around to video, and you pick up something here and you pick up something here, but what's the part in the middle, or what's the next thing to do? Walks you step by step, and that helps obviously support what we're doing here of trying to produce high quality content on a regular basis that is valuable to you, the trapper, and user. So if you're in that position, wanting to get a head start, a jump start on catching some coyotes, go check that out. That can get you, will definitely get you started. Also, if you want to support us and you need a new trapping bag, you need a trapping bag that all of your tools and equipment will fit in without hanging out the end and getting snagged on stuff and falling out, the short liner trapping bag is probably the answer to what you've been looking for. This is a bag that I designed and made myself. It is long enough that it's going to fit all your tools, your trowel, your hammer, your everything. Your stake driver is going to go all the way in this bag. It's a durable, waterproof, kind of rubberized material, so it can sit out in the weather. It's not going to matter. Rain's not going to hurt it. I've got drain holes, actually, because it'll hold water if you don't have drain holes. So I've got drain holes in here. If you want to rinse all the junk out of it, you can rinse all the junk out of it. It's not going to get brittle either in the sun or in the cold, but it's kind of a lightweight material, but it's very durable, I can promise you. You listen to some of Jeremiah Woods, he's done a podcast about it, and talking about how he wasn't sure how well it was going to hold up, and he gave it a pretty serious stress test, and it's still right there waiting for him to go use it right again. So I'm really proud of this product, of being able to come up with an idea and put it into action, and sold out of everything I made last year, and got a new round of product in. Some of my family is actually, I talked them into sewing this for me because I don't have the time this year like I did last year. So this is all handmade right here in the USA, right here in Georgia. And so if you want your short liner trapping bag, go to the website, coyotetrappingschool.com, look up the short liner trapping bag and put your order in. I've got a few on hand and more being made, so it'll ship out. If I don't have it in stock, it'll ship out as soon as I get it, which should be within a week or so at most of getting your order. So I appreciate the support from that. Getting into the meat of today's show, I did an interview with Kyle Waltz. Now, I interviewed Kyle earlier this year, and Kyle he produces the Wildlife Control podcast, and he is a real wealth of information so far as growing and running a wildlife control business. Kyle is actually younger than me, but he has built I guess multiple wildlife control businesses. Actually sold one major part of his original business and has since pushed towards expanding kind of in a nationwide pattern his other business of Conserv Wildlife Services. I think it's what it's called. Conserv Pest and Wildlife or something. Anyway, Conserv is the kind of the brand name. And if you listen to his wildlife control podcast, he's also got a pitch. So he's taken a little bit of a different tact than I guess is generally taken by companies that are try to expand, open new branches, and he actually did that. Tried to open his own branches and kind of had some learnings from that, and has changed his model. So he's got some of his own branches that are owned and operated by the company Conserv, but then he's also willing to partner with either new trappers, new wildlife control operators that are looking to get into business, or existing wildlife control operators that are looking to maybe expand or want to grow faster or something like that. So I heard his kind of spiel on his podcast, and is very intriguing as a kind of a budding wildlife control operator looking to grow my business seriously. It's definitely something that got my attention, and so I reached out to him, and he was gracious enough to me and him met up actually and sat down and kind of talked through some of this stuff. And it's I think it's a pretty awesome opportunity that's available out there. Like I said, if you're a newer, if you're somebody that wants to get into the wildlife control business, but maybe it doesn't take a lot necessarily, but you got to have a truck, you got to have some equipment, and the biggest thing is you got to have some know-how, and then you got to get leads, and that's knowing how to price your jobs and knowing how to get leads. I mean, that's two of the huge keys to starting and running and operating a successful business, and that's something that partnering with Kyle that he right off the bat provides is his kind of method for getting leads, and then how he prices at his different operations. So it's a really neat opportunity, something that's definitely given me a lot to think about so far as what that means and considering partnering. So anyway, I hope you get some good information out of this. Kyle is always more than generous with his time and willing to talk to people. So if you're interested, if you've got questions, and he gives all his information too, but you can reach out to Kyle Waltz, Waltz, Conserv Wildlife. He's most active probably on Instagram, but they've got an email set up specifically if you want to talk about this. I think it's growth@conservmail.com. I'll link everything below, but if you're interested, if there's something that you're really interested in, reach out to Kyle. He'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you. I mean, he's just a really down-to-earth guy, and he thinks about things a little bit differently, and it's pretty neat to see, and I think it's a great opportunity and a lot of opportunity out there. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. We'll catch you on the next one. So we're here today with Kyle Waltz again. We had a interview earlier in the year, right before COVID, the whole COVID's lockdown, and but that hadn't slowed him down, and the Conserv brand, and so we're just doing a follow-up, kind of trying to get a picture of where what has transpired over the last few months, and what's Conserv looking like going forward, and we had a lot of good information for new wildlife control operators. Anybody that's looking to get into the business. I think it was just a great resource of things to do, things to look for, opportunities for improvement. So. Kyle, thanks for coming back, and tell us what Conserv is looking like right now.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and we're doing good. I think when we met, I think it was in January or February.
Yep.
And that was right before COVID, I guess. I think it was in January.
Because it was right after.
Was it right after the NACOA conference?
Maybe
that would have been in February.
I can't remember.
Okay. I think it was, because I think you'd asked me about it.
Yeah, I did. I did ask you about it. Because
Yeah, so it was in February. So yeah, it was right when all that crap went down. And so, at that time I think we had 4 or 5 locations with Conserv, and I was, of course, running the First Coast Wildlife business in Jacksonville still, and had another business in Tampa that had just been acquired by McCall Service. And I remember talking to one of our locations, and I called him out. One of our locations said, "Hey man, it's really slow because of COVID." And I called BS. I said, no, it's not slow. I said, everybody's at home. Wildlife control is not influenced by the economy. It's influenced by demand. And I know that because I've been in the industry. I got into the industry in 2008. And if you're familiar with economics, 2008 was a horrible year. And we had a great year in 2008 when I worked for a startup then. And I started my company in 2010. So I called BS on the COVID. I think we've had conversations about it before. And I've really touched base with everybody in the industry that I know, some guys that are running, 2 million plus companies, about the status of their business during COVID. And most people all said the same things. And it was, everybody's at home. They're noticing things that they didn't see before. And because of that, they're finding more problems. Like, they're hearing noises in their attic they might not hear because they've been at work. And now they're hearing the squirrels that are in their attic in the middle of the day, and they're not hearing them at night because maybe their kids are really loud and they just don't notice, or whatever the case may be. So we saw an increase in business during the whole COVID, which I guess is still going on. Not here in South Georgia.
Right.
So thank the good Lord for South Georgia. But it is still going on in a lot of other places. We have locations all over the U.S. But at that time, we only had a few. And I guess if you're using COVID as an excuse to not do business, I think you're really missing out. Because we saw a huge increase. Did you see an increase, Chris?
Yeah, I did. So I actually increased some of my ad spend in April.
Yep, I remember
in April through June, and COVID was a non-issue. I was getting more calls than I had been doing, prior to that. So it was, I didn't really see any kind of slowdown.
Right. Do you think that's because of the areas that you service? They're kind of lower population cities, or do you think that mattered at all?
I hadn't really thought about that. I don't think that mattered a lot.
Because the concern was still there if you're watching the media.
Yeah, that's right. And I had a few, I had a few customers that, they'd say, I'll leave the door open, text me when you get here, and, you go up to the attic and do your thing. But I mean, even that, I didn't have that many people that even seemed too concerned.
Right.
So, I guess maybe part of it was you were just hearing about it on the news. It wasn't anything really locally. So it seemed kind of out of sight, out of mind, maybe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, even in the cities, in some of the bigger cities that we service. So from when we met in February, we started opening up new locations for Conserv all over the country. So we opened up 15
right
this year. And in the bigger cities, we did notice hesitancy. Like people were calling us out, but they may not have wanted to do business face to face. They wanted to, leave a proposal at the door or whatever. But as far as inbound call volume and opportunities to close business, it went up for sure.
Right.
And we took full advantage of that, and it worked out. It's worked out well. So we didn't have any problems. But I think you asked what's Conserv been up to this year.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked, y'all had a pretty aggressive kind of growth strategy and for trying to open a lot of new locations. So
yeah. So honestly, we've done 15, I think it is, off the top of my head. It's nowhere near where we want to be this year. and we wanted to get to actually like 100 this year, and I think it's still possible. I mean, we still got 3 months left.
That's right. That's right.
But it does take a lot of work to do that.
Yeah.
So, but basically, I think we've talked in the past, and I've been talking to a lot of other people about this. Before I sold off a couple of branches of my company, I was approached by some. So I've always wanted to build a giant wildlife company, as you can assume. And I've always just been very fascinated in building a giant wildlife control company. And I'm super passionate about wildlife control. But then there's this other side of me that thinks about the pest control model, mainly because it's more recurring, and because of its recurring revenue, it was and still is. It's very attractive to grow because you get that residuals coming in. You can build up a good base, a big foundation, and it's not a one-time sale and you're done. Whereas most of it is for wildlife control. But I sat down and really thought about it. And I had an opportunity, so I had some investors that came in, and they said, "Hey, we would like to." And I was out there pitching, like, "Hey, I want to build a giant pest control company on the bug side." Right before I sold off a couple of branches, only a few people know this, so now the world knows this because 1 billion people listen to this.
That's right,
at least. And then 2 people in Botswana. But. So I was really thinking about going in with these investors and building a giant pest control company, mainly through acquisitions. And the more I thought about it, and the more I'm like, I just hate bugs. And it's not that I hate pest control. I think pest control is great. It just doesn't fascinate me like wildlife stuff does. Like, I don't know what it is. And I don't want to it's easier to work my butt off and grind 60 to 100 hours a week on something I love than do that just about the money. And the pest control model is great, and there's companies out there that are growing to, say if you grow to $10 million, you might be able to sell your business for $20 or $30 million. So there's like these huge exits happening. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized I'd rather just focus on wildlife control and do something different in wildlife control. And I really wasn't sure what that looked like or what that was, but I knew that I definitely didn't want to grow the same way I did in 2017 when I did 10 locations in 10 months, because that model was good and all, but it definitely had some flaws to it. And I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to think outside the box, and I wanted to try and help more people at the same time. So after the acquisition, me and one of my coworkers sat down in my office one night, and we started planning for 2020. And I've had 2 partnerships through the life of my business now since, for I guess a little over a year now. And those partnerships for me were far more beneficial than the individual branches that I owned 100% of. And I think the reason why is, when you have employees, I can only give them so much value. Now, obviously, I can give away shares of the company. But when you have people that are fully vested, that actually own a percentage of this thing that you're trying to build, there's a different feeling for me as I go through that with them, and I feel like I can make a greater impact. And not only that, and not that our managers that we have now aren't fully vested, because they are, but I think that things certainly change a little bit when you become an owner. Like for yourself, you own your own business now, but I'm sure before you had Catch Pro, and you're still doing the forestry thing?
Right.
So when you made that transition of employee to employer, it kind of felt different, right?
Oh, for sure.
So it's like, hey, this is like with this, I guess the sky is the limit more of a
Right.
thing. Like, I can take this as far as I want. Whereas you're an employee, I mean, yeah, you can take it as far as you want, but there's still there's a place that you're going to get that you potentially plateau.
Right.
You know, and I experienced that just recently, being an employee for the first time in 10 years after I sold my business, or part of my business. It's just a different feeling. And so I wanted to give more people an opportunity to be an owner with Conserv and own a part of Conserv through different regional areas, rather than just be employees. And I felt like I could create a greater impact for them, but at the same time, it would help us build a bigger company and provide more value in the wildlife control industry. But more than anything, more than that, I want to just disrupt the wildlife control industry. You don't have a lot of giant players anymore. There's a few companies out there that are doing, I would say, 5 million plus, and then you have the two giants, Critter Control and TruTech, which are owned by the same company that owns Orkin. It's called Rollins. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, that's $1 billion company. So I don't even look at those guys as competitors, although they definitely are a competitor. But though I don't, they're on a whole different level.
Right.
And they've already sold off, and those owners that built those businesses are long gone. So what I wanted to do, and also when, so Kevin Clark is the guy, and I would love to sit down and talk to this guy. He's the guy that founded Critter Control. It was like in 1982, I believe. Maybe it was a little bit later than that. So he founded Critter Control, and I think when he sold the business, it was probably doing $85 million in revenue. And I may be wrong, but the research that I've done is he was the only owner. He had franchisees, but when he sold out that business, those franchisees didn't get a penny of that money. They just continued to run their business.
Right.
And, the way that I look at it is, I want to build a big business. I want to help as many people as I can along the way. I want to disrupt the industry. And in the event I do sell a business again, and I have an opportunity to sell an entire portfolio of wildlife control businesses across the U.S., I don't want to be the only guy to win off that deal. I want everybody to win off that deal. I want everybody to get a piece of the pie. Because I think that's just a lot more exciting, when you see everybody win all at the same time, rather than it's just me. I guess there's a part of me, and maybe it's just because of how I was brought up, there's a part of me when I look at that it just seems a little selfish.
Yeah.
It seems a little selfish to build this giant company, and Kevin Clark, who I don't think he's a bad guy. He's a big fisherman. I do know that. He likes to go marlin fishing. But you build this giant company. The company is not Kevin Clark. The company is everybody that's involved. All of the employees, especially all of his franchisees. They're the ones that are out there, driving in sales. They're out there having meetings with clients and building their business, and they're putting a bunch of sweat in the game. And then, this company gets sold, and nothing's changed for them, but they worked really, really hard, and I feel like they should have got something for that. And some people might strongly disagree with me, but I just think it's a lot more exciting and intellectually stimulating when you can group up a lot of different people that run their own businesses, and we can all get on the same page with how we're doing things and make it as beneficial as possible for everybody. And in the long run, when there is a situation where, hey, we're going to sell off the company, those individuals can continue to run their business. But more than that, when there is a big transaction like what happened with Critter Control, which I have no idea what they sold for, but regardless of the amount, it doesn't even matter. Everybody's going to get a piece of that pie. So with Conserv today, we have 3 different models. We are partnering with individuals. So if somebody wanted to start their own wildlife control business, maybe they've worked for somebody else and they've thought about going into business themselves, they don't currently have a business, we will partner up with them. Now they have to obviously, go through interviews and, make sure that they're a good fit, make sure they're not, stealing a bunch of stuff or having any drug problems and,
right.
Like a typical interview. But as long as the people that we meet with are good people and we can get behind them and we can believe that they're capable of being successful in business, then we most definitely will partner with them. And we'll create a business around what they want, around their lifestyle. And we do our best to cater to that. And it's a Conserv branded business, and we'll help them anywhere that we can become successful in there. So we help them with lead generation, taking calls through our call center, any type of national account relationships that we have. We can make introductions for those. When you start a business from scratch as a wildlife control operator, you're probably going to be the one answering the calls and doing all the work. Answering the calls, Chris, how many calls do you answer a day for your business?
Probably 15 to 20.
15 to 20 calls a day. Okay. Now, are those inbound leads or are those like current customers?
Leads.
Leads.
I mean, that's everything.
Leads. So how many of those leads pan out?
Maybe
maybe
a quarter.
So, yeah, because there's a percentage of those that probably aren't even wildlife leads, actually. They're just trash calls, solicitors, whatever, right? So we screen all those out.
Right.
So rather than you get, so how many, you said 25% are real?
Yeah, probably.
So if you're getting 12, so what is that, 3?
Yeah.
So rather than you taking 12 calls, you would get from us just 3 text messages. Hey, snake in a house, squirrel in an attic, bats in an attic. So we would just answer the calls for you. So we're screening them for you. So you don't have to deal with them. Because think about how much time it takes to answer all those phone calls. Because you're sitting down and you're having lunch with your buddy and trying to catch up on what's going on in each other's lives, and your phone rings and you're like, is that a $3,000 bat call?
Right.
Or is that a dog in the yard?
Yeah.
You don't know, and you got to take the call, so you have to answer the phone, you have to explain yourself, and you obviously want to try to generate a sale out of that. So rather than you take the call, our call center takes the call, and they screen all the calls. So that's one advantage. And then more than anything is cost savings. When you start a business from scratch, there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot that goes into, and we've talked about this before, but there's a lot that goes into researching, what insurance company to pick, what commercial auto policy is best if you have one. Just like, where do I get uniform shirts made? Where do I get business cards made? Where is the best place for me to buy hardware cloth and other tools and equipment that you use on a weekly basis? We've already done all that homework. We've already done all that. So all that's out of the picture. So with us, it's not a franchise because you actually own a portion of that business. And we help you every step of the way. We give you like operations manuals that we have. We give you pricing strategies that we use. We know that if you use our pricing strategies, and we don't know what you have, but if you've never ran a business before, so you don't have anything, you have that pricing strategy that we've already done all the homework, and we're doing that on a regular basis. We're calling our major competitors in specific markets and making sure that our prices are still good and we're not way too high or way too low. We're trying to get in that sweet spot on a regular basis. And we know what your margins are supposed to be and how much money you should be paying for advertising and how much money you should be paying for payroll and so on and so forth. So all those things have have already been researched, have already been done and handled, and you have all that knowledge at your fingertips. So, as an individual who's on the fence thinking about starting a business, we would actually, partner with that individual and help them with that. And then the second model is an existing business like yourself.
Right.
So you have an existing company, you're already out there doing all the work, you're already getting leads where you probably don't need any help with that. You're already up and running. You're already generating revenue. So immediately we know there's cost savings there. We know that, hey, if we partner with you, and which for us is probably going to be like a 25% partner, which means we have no control. We can only have control if we own more than 49%.
Right.
So as a 25% partner, you'd be considered like an associate company. And basically, whenever we do that, we create an operating agreement around that business. So say your business is in Atlanta, Georgia, and let's just say, for example, you're called Atlanta Wildlife Services. You continue to run Atlanta Wildlife Services. We're not coming in trying to change everything. So on the front end, we negotiate the operating agreement. So on the front end, we're going to say, all right, Chris, here's a copy of our operating agreement. This is what we would like to do with your business. Here are the duties and responsibilities for Conserv. And then here are the duties and responsibilities that we would want you to focus on. And you take that and you say, I'm going to X that out. Nope, that ain't happening. Nope, you're not going to do that. Nope, you're not going to do that. And you're going to hand it back over. And we go back and forth until we can come to some sort of an agreement and meet in the middle somewhere. But I think more than anything, the cost savings thing probably stands out more than ever. So for you, Chris, like simple math, the 15 to 20 calls a day. So if you're answering the phone 15 to 20 times a day, how much time do you think that takes you on a daily basis?
I'd probably say, at least 5 minutes a call.
Okay, so an hour?
Yeah, probably.
Roughly. Is that right?
I think it close.
I'm horrible with math in my head. 15,
yeah, hour and a half.
Hour and a half, okay. So an hour and a half a day. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for you. Well, let me just back up for a second. I know because I've been there. It's really annoying when you're in an attic and let's say you're like looking for a dead animal in an attic and you have a call come in, right? It's kind of frustrating because you're trying to search for a dead animal and now you have a phone coming in. You don't want to miss the call because, again, it could be a hot lead, and if you don't answer the phone, you don't want to risk that call going to a competitor and then you missing out on that completely, especially if you're paying for leads. Whether you're paying for them or not, really, you don't want to miss out on that.
Right. That
could be $3,000. Hell, it could be a $30,000 bad exclusion on a shopping center. You don't know what that call is. So you're trying to take every call. So now that inspection that you're doing, or that dead animal search that you're doing in the attic, is going to take longer because you're on the phone talking to the customer while you're standing up in the attic. Or you're on a roof doing exclusion and you have to take a call. So you have to pause doing the exclusion. Or you're about to go do a new inspection for a new lead that came in and the inspection is supposed to start right now, but you just had a phone call come in. So you're sitting in your truck an extra 30 minutes talking to a customer and explaining to them how everything works. All that stuff adds up. So that's 2 hours of your day that's being added. Now, if that's happening while you're driving, you're really not missing out on anything.
Right.
But if you're on job sites and those calls are coming in, that adds in to your workflow every day, which means you're getting home later than you would if you didn't take those calls.
Right.
But it doesn't really make any sense to hire someone to answer the phones because you don't really know when those calls are going to come in.
Right.
They can come in at 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 5 p.m., and you don't want to pay somebody full time to take those calls. Well, with us, there's a huge cost savings there because you don't have to go out and hire somebody and pay them $35,000 a year or whatever you want to pay them to take your calls full time and do your administrative stuff because we have people that are already doing that, we can easily take those calls for you, and the difference would be like, it would cost you like $7,000 a year versus $30,000 a year. So there's immediate cost savings with stuff like that. General liability insurance, huge cost savings with that. As you build a bigger company, you have reduced costs with insurance when you group everything together. So we divide that across all of our businesses rather than it just being a part of one individual entity here in Georgia. It's divided across everybody. So it covers all the companies under the Conserv name. But I mean, ultimately, we don't want to change anything in the business. Instead, what we want to do in that scenario is identify, what do you want? What are you trying to build exactly? And how do we get there as fast as possible? Whatever that might look like. For some guys, it's, hey, I'm doing $200,000 of revenue this year. I really just want to get to like 500,000. And a lot of times we can look at a model and identify little cracks and crevices where things are being skipped, and we can add revenue in just like that. I mean, literally, I had a conversation with a guy, and I won't say the location because we haven't done a deal with him yet, but I had a location with a guy, I think it was last week when I talked to you and I was driving down.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So last week, and his business this year is on track to do $250,000. I spent an hour and a half with him. And after an hour and a half, I was able to determine areas of his business where he could literally double the size of his company today. So you take $250,000 and divide it by 12, so that's $20,000 in business. So in the month of September, he could do $20,000 of business, whereas in the month of October, once we were to deploy the ideas that we would put into his business immediately, he could do $41,000 without hiring anybody, without buying advertising, without doing anything other than just changing up a couple strategies in his company to allow him to just think differently. I think there's a lot of value to be said for partnering with a company that has a lot of experience. One of the guys that's a regional manager for us today, his job was to go around, so he used to work for a $500 million pest control company. You can guess which one, years ago. And his job was to go around to all of the losing branches in that business. So when you have a really giant company like Terminix, for example, you're going to have some branches that are just killing it, knocking it out of the park. And then you're going to have other branches that the CEO is scratching his head, like, what is going on here?
Right.
Why is this market, these guys should be killing it. This is a great market. There's a huge population center. We're doing everything the same as far as marketing and advertising there. They can see the call volume coming in. They can see the number of leads. They can see what they have there, but for whatever reason, that branch is just not killing it. So they would send this guy out to those branches that were losing and turn them around and say, hey, these are the things that you guys need to do. So he works for us. He's a regional manager. So, having that kind of experience at your fingertips, and we all have the same thing in mind, right? Success, whatever that looks like for you. So, being a part of a company like that, I think, and we're all going in the same direction, is extremely valuable for everybody involved. There's immediate synergies there. Like I said, there's cost savings, but the fact is, you might be running your business a certain way today, but not have that mindset of running it like that forever. And most people don't want to do the same thing forever. So that's the second model. The third model is we just come in and we just buy you outright, 100%. And we take over the entire company, in which case we don't want to change anything. If we acquire your business, we are not interested in making any large, abrupt changes. If it's profitable and doing really well and everybody's happy, and if there's employees, there's good quality people working there, we're not interested in changing a single thing. And if we do, it's probably not going to happen for a year. We want everything to run exactly the same because it is risky because wildlife control businesses are all mostly one time. So we want to make sure, obviously, we're making money. So we don't want to screw with anything. If it's working, let's not screw with it. Let's just let it do its thing. So that's basically what we've done this year and how we've opened up 15 locations.
Right.
Or created 15 additional locations to our business this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to 2017.
Yeah.
You opened 10 locations in 10 months.
Uh-huh.
And that was all, I guess, corporate-owned locations, right?
Mm-hmm. And we still have some today.
Well, that was my question. Are those 10 locations still open? And can you...
So, two of them, three of the 10 I've sold completely. Let's see. 1, 2, 3 others are still active. They are partially owned by us. We've given equity away to individuals that are running them as the first model.
Right.
So we literally gave equity. They're up and running, and somebody came in and said, hey, we are interested. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. We're interested in doing a deal with you guys. We said, hey, you can have this location, and we're going to give you equity, and you're now an owner of that, just like that. And so they get a portion of that profit every month, and they continue to run it. And we did that because it's so much easier to manage. You know, when you have a bunch of employees all over the country, and let's say it's a one-man show operation, when he's an employee and he's not getting every bit of the profits for his efforts, there's a different mentality there, which we already discussed. But when he's an owner and he's like, man, I really get out of this what I put into it. Mm-hmm. There's retainment upsides to that. You know, people want to stay because of that because they're a part of something.
Right.
You know, which goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you're a part of something and when you're a part of a big vision for us to be the next Critter Control, you know, there's something there that you wouldn't get as just an employee. Not that we don't have employees that are all for our vision, but I think for a lot of our new locations, that's going to be the way that we're going to grow going forward. It's easier for us to manage when we have people that have skin in the game,
right? Versus
just hiring somebody. Because look at it this way. Let's say I just have an employee at a location, and he quits. Well, there's really nothing that I can do to tie that employee there.
Right.
He's out. He's done. And also, I can't pay that employee the same that I could pay an owner-operator. And the reason why is, well, owner-operator is going to have a lot more responsibilities. He's going to be in charge of way more things, whereas an employee is going to have a set of things that he's responsible for, and really nothing outside of that. I can't really, enforce him to be responsible for those other things.
Right.
And why would he? He's an employee.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to work his 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week and go home to his family, and that's it. But when you're an owner, there's, I think, a new level of appreciation for hard work, and you're more likely to put in the extra hours. You're more likely to do things that you wouldn't do otherwise because you know, hey, I get a piece of this profit at the end of the month or at the beginning of next month. So to answer your question, yes, we have multiple areas that 3 that we still actively use. So part of the deal, and this is part of the reason why we had to restructure. So when I sold Expel, which was, most of these were all branded Expel, I sold my rights to the name.
Gotcha.
Yep. So legally, I had to close down any businesses that were associated with that name. Now, it doesn't mean I couldn't just reopen the next day.
Sure.
Which I did. But I picked the ones that I wanted to do that. So I told myself, look, so in 2018, I traveled like over 200 days of the year. going around to locations. And the reason why I traveled so much is we had company assets in all these locations. So, trucks, ladders, tools, we had, traps, we have all this stuff. Whereas when I partner with an individual, we go in together to start a company. Those are all his stuff. That's all his stuff. So that's the way that we structure it. Those tools are his. The truck is his. Everything is that guy or girl that we partner with. So if that person were to go off and leave, well, first of all, they probably wouldn't do that because they have warranties and customers, and they could get into a lot of trouble. They could get lawsuits and whatnot against them. You can't just shut down in that scenario. But for us, we had all this company-owned stuff. So if a location went down, an employee left a truck in a parking lot, I got to go out there, or somebody has got to go out there. We only have so many managers.
Right.
So if you have we're shorthanded at this location, this state, we have this person that's on their honeymoon, so we already have a manager deployed there helping out, and then this person over here, we found out he was stealing from a customer, so we have to fire him. So that required me to travel so much, which is not fun. Traveling 200 days a year is exhausting.
I imagine.
And it's not like I'm traveling, like today I travel from St. Mary's to Macon, Georgia. That's nothing. Traveling from Jacksonville, Florida to Philadelphia to Chicago, this is multiple airports, hotels, multiple nights, and just never being at home. That's not a fun thing. So that also was motivation to create the model that we have, is how do we do this in a way to where I don't have to travel so dang much. And instead, I can travel because I want to, not because I have to.
Right.
Like, I can go travel to go see my guy in Charleston because I want to, because I want to meet up with him. I want to help him. I want to see what we can do differently. We can go meet some clients together, get some referral sources together. And that's what I do now rather than like I had a hunting trip planned on Saturday and Sunday. Can't go now. Now I got to go fly to Chicago because my other managers are deployed at other locations, and guess who's left? Me. So now I got to go. So now I got to go fly to Chicago because somebody quit or whatever the situation may be. So that is a huge problem, and I want to avoid that if I can.
Right.
And that's why I did it that way.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So I guess let's walk me through.
Yeah.
Specifically, because I listen to your wildlife control podcast, and you give a little spiel, for the Conserv, and
right.
If you want to grow your business, if you want to increase sales,
yeah.
It definitely hooks me and gets me. That's why I asked you about it. You called me the other day.
Sure.
I just listened to an episode, and I was like, I gotta get more information. So if this is something that I'm interested in, partnering up with Conserv, like what does that look like? From an existing operator standpoint. You talked a little bit about the operating agreement.
Yeah.
But,
so we're going to go through what we call due diligence, which is we want to learn everything possible about your business. That's the first thing. The second thing is we want to know what your goals are. I cannot help you, Conserv cannot help you if we don't know where you're trying to go. So, if your goal is just to increase your own financial situation by $50,000 a year, obviously that's very doable. But we need to know what the goal is so we can identify what needs to happen to reach the goal. You don't just start driving not knowing where you're going. I need a destination, so I know which way to go. So we identify what that goal is, what that destination is. We also want to identify what do you want your life to look like. You can have a successful wildlife removal business and work 30 hours a week. I really believe that you can do that. And that's, success is whatever you make it. So, your version of success and my version of success might be very different. So we just want to identify what is your version of success. What is it that you want? And then once we identify those things, now we're going to go through due diligence and look at your business and figure out what I guess you could say we want to conserve it. What are you currently doing in your business that we would never do? But that doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong, right? So we just want to figure out what it is you're doing. But if we can see, oh, wait a second, he's doing these things, or he's really undercharging, or he's just leaving a ton of money on the table, or maybe his sales strategy, or I should say her sales strategy, is wrong. Sales, without a doubt, is one of the most important parts of a wildlife control business, because most of our sales are one-time services. And, for us, we do sales training on a daily basis. Well, I don't say not daily. We do it 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday. So every morning we all get together the same time on the phone on a conference line, and we hash it out. How many leads did you have yesterday? Like real leads, not how many dogs were in the yard, right. But like how many real leads did you have yesterday? What did you sell? And if you didn't sell anything, why the heck did you not sell anything? In a nice way. And we're just going to ask the questions. So there's an accountability thing, which is another benefit, because when you're on your own, who's holding you accountable?
Right.
Nobody. Yourself. So if you're hard on yourself, then you're fine. But a lot of us aren't that hard on ourselves. Not as hard as we should be, because we have people in our lives that really love us. And don't be so hard on yourself.
Right.
You're fine just the way you are. Oh, we got everything we need. You don't need to work any harder. So, having somebody that's going to hold you accountable, and our standard is incredibly high, which I know you already knew that. But yeah, we want to make sure that, and some people look at that as a bad thing, like, oh, you're just trying to get as much money from the customer as possible. It's actually the exact opposite. We want to give the customer as much value as possible. So if you're a customer and you called a wildlife removal company, you want to get rid of the nuisance and you want to prevent the nuisance, and you clearly care a little bit about your property. And most people that are good intentioned people care about their health as well. So we think about those three things. The getting rid of the nuisance animal, or four things. Making sure they don't ever come back again, and then what can we do to make your property less attractive, and then is there any safety or health concerns on the property that have to do with wildlife or may not have to do with wildlife, and that's something that we can provide, like insulation or cleaning up droppings in the attic, decontaminating the house. Those are all things that are value adds, and a lot of people leave those things there and don't even mention them to the customers. And those things can drastically increase sales. And a lot of us don't do those things when we're starting out because we don't have the manpower. You don't really need the manpower. You can still do it. Or we feel like, I'm so busy, I just don't really want to deal with it. Or you think, there's no way this customer is going to spend this much money, so why even bother? Shame on you.
Right.
Because you don't know what people's financial situation are, no matter what the house looks like. I've been in really rough neighborhoods, really rough, where I feel the need to pack my concealed weapon in my pants when I go in the house because it's that scary. And I've had people, I've proposed, I've been in the backyard and they're burning tires, they're burning garbage in their backyard. There's a lot of screaming and yelling going on and all the neighbors and loud music. And I'm training a salesperson, and he's a young guy, he's like 21, 22 years old. And he's terrified. I can tell, like, what are we doing here? This is like a setup. And we finish the inspection. They have rats. And we write up a proposal, and it's like $5,000. And he's thinking, there is no way in heck this lady's going to buy. And she goes back in the bedroom and she lifts up the mattress. She comes back with a wad of hundreds and fives and tens and ones and every bill you can think of all mixed together and hands it over. When can you get started? So you just never know. You never know. So we teach people a lot about sales and a lot about giving value to their customers and strategies that make them more comfortable selling those things. Because when you do look at the leaders in our industry, and I'm not just talking wildlife control, I'm talking pest control too. They are really good at selling big jobs. So when you look at your leads that you're getting, you take your sales and you divide it by the number of leads that you're getting. There's a number that we look for, which I will not disclose right now. But there's a specific number that we look for that is satisfactory for us. And everybody's company is going to look different. But, these bigger companies, they're getting a lot more per lead than the smaller ones. And it's not because they're doing a whole lot different. They're just offering more services for each individual lead. That's all. They're just offering more. And I think a lot of us don't do that. And a lot of us don't even know what to offer. But there's so many services that can be added in with a wildlife control lead. There's so many opportunities there for cross-selling other services that are related to wildlife control. And they aren't necessarily, I'm not selling painting fences. I'm not selling construction. Everything that we sell has to do with preventing wildlife and making the home better in the future so that they have less, or building less wildlife intrusion. And it's all about just giving the customer as much value as possible. So yeah, they're willing to spend X amount of dollars for this much value. Well, how much are they willing to spend for 5 times the amount of value? Well, probably 5 times the amount of money. So I just got to figure that out. So, our pricing strategies and our sales meetings on a daily basis, those things drive in a ton of value into your own business. And we've seen it, so we've been doing the daily sales meetings since 2017, and I can say that we've had people that started off, we put them in a sales role that started off selling $3,000 or $4,000 a month, which is, for a full-time salesperson, that's pitiful if that's their full-time job. And then by the time we got done with them, within the next 3 or 4 months after we've coached them, they went from $3,000 or $4,000 a month to $30,000 a month. Same number of leads. So clearly they had the wrong strategy, right? All we did was we taught them how to deal with those leads. Go back to them after you've already closed deals and see where they can provide more value, or maybe complete the sale. They didn't sell the entire package. So go back and complete that sale of the entire package. But overcoming sales objections, which that's not a wildlife control topic, that's just a sales topic. Overcoming objections in general is not just beneficial if you're in business. It's just beneficial for your entire life, for getting what you want, and helping other people get what they want, So, there's a ton of value in that. So I think those meetings, which are group meetings, and we divide them up into regional areas because everybody's on different time zones. I try to be on every single one of them. We go through yesterday's leads, yesterday's sales, what sold, what didn't sell. If you don't have anything lined up today, what's your strategy for the day? What are you going to do? Because you should always have some type of a strategy for the day if you don't have anything lined up. And, can you imagine Starbucks not having any sales at one of their locations in one day?
No.
Exactly. So if you're in business for yourself, you should be cranking in sales every single day. Every day, no matter what. And, if you don't always need leads to do that. It's helpful to have leads.
Right.
But we also teach people strategies to go out and get their own work when things are slow. Because there are some populations in areas that are not that big, where you can't just depend on leads. You got to go out there and create your own luck and make it happen. You can't just wait for the phone to ring.
Right.
If we just waited for the phone to ring every single day, there's no way we'd be successful.
Right.
Because sometimes it doesn't rain. If it storms for 3 or 4 days in a row, sometimes people aren't going to call. Or, hurricane season, which I think we're almost done with that. Or whatever it might be, and, snow and wherever some people live, I know is definitely a factor. It's definitely a factor for us, too. But, those strategies they're game changers. And having the right principles in place for your business and knowing what to do in every situation, knowing what to do when you have a snow day, knowing what to do when you have a rainy day, knowing what to do when the customer doesn't want to move forward with the sale, of overcoming that objection and identifying what can be done to get them to move forward. Those are obviously very beneficial.
Right.
So I think that I don't even know what your question was. I get way off track.
So, talking about purchasing a portion, of an existing business.
Yeah.
So what does that look like, throughout the year or at year end or whatever, if Conserv owns 25% of my business?
So we're gonna charge a management fee, which is basically a portion of your profit. It's not 25% of your profit though. It's that management fee goes back to the operating agreement. So we're going to choose that management fee, and that's going to be inside that operating agreement of what Conserv gets. And that management fee is going to be different for every single business. But, we're going to look at your financials. We're looking at everything in your business. We want to see how it's running. We're going to open up the hood, take a look, see how it's running. Can we do anything differently here? And I think this is our intention. We want to be able to identify when we partner with you, immediately we want to reduce cost and immediately we want to increase revenue. So whatever that management fee is going to, we don't want to make it feel like we're taking money off your table. Instead, we want to replace. So, hey Chris, this right here, we believe we can. You become a part of our company. We can reduce this cost right off the get go. This thing here, we know that we can increase your revenue X number of dollars. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a management fee that's going to be tied to performance. So once we get to this, boom, that's when that management fee starts. And then once we get to this, that management fee is going to go up to that. So say your business does $200,000 a year this year. Hey, Chris, we can get you to, we believe we can go from $20,000 a month, get you to $40,000 a month in the next 2 months. And once we get there, then the management fee is going to start. And then when we get to $40,000, we're going to help you hire some people and show you a strategy to get people in place to do the jobs and get the business cranking. And then from there, we're going to help you get to 60. How do we get you to 60? And then here's a plan to get you to 60. Once we get to $60,000 in revenue, boom, that new management fee kicks in. So on and so forth. So there's different like baskets or goals. And when we get to those goals, boom. So we're only earning it when we get to specific goals.
Right.
But once we earn it, we're going to continue to, because we know you can do it. Right. We're going to continue to get that percentage. But it's not a percentage of profit. It's going to be a flat fee.
Gotcha.
The fee's not going to go up. So if your profit goes way higher than we ever anticipated based on that goal, we're not going to make more money. We want to get the management fee. We want to be a part of the business long term. And we want to know that, hey, in the next 5 to 7 years, when your business is just thriving way greater than you ever imagined, either A, we buy you outright, B, we sell you with our entire portfolio, or C, nothing changes. We just continue to run and move forward. But for us, we envision in the next 5 to 7 years of experiencing an exit event.
Sure.
Yeah. And then after that, we'll do it again.
Well, that was one of my questions down the line. Is, you know, you're a pretty driven guy. Like, I don't think you're capable of exiting and then going and sitting on the beach and
no,
flipping seashells. So
I get bored really quick. Trust me. I go on vacation and I'm bored in like 4 days. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go to work.
So with that exit, I guess, is the question of,
okay,
how would a bigger company view that as, or purchasing company?
There's one thing I missed out that I didn't tell you yet. Is so if we partner with you as a 25% owner, we are not going to take 25% of your business when you sell your business. So, like, meaning, to do some simple math here, and I got to get my calculator out because this is on air and I don't want to embarrass myself. Well, let's say we sell your business for $1 million. We're not going to take 25% of that $1 million. Okay? Instead, we're going to take 25% of the upside. So when we start out as a partner with you, we identify the value of the company today. And if you wanted to go out and get your own broker to do a valuation, go right ahead. But basically, for a smaller company, like a wildlife company, you're probably worth 1 to 3 times profit.
Right.
So if you're doing $200,000, you're probably making at least a 30% profit. We'll just say a 30% profit. So at the most, your company's worth $180,000.
Right.
Okay. So what we're going to do is say, okay, great. We have a buyer for $1 million. When we started with you, your company is worth $180. So we're going to get 25% of the upside, which is $825,000 or $820,000. So we're going to take 25% of that.
Right.
Because, hey, Chris, we helped you grow your business from where it was to where it is today. And you can agree or disagree at that point if we were really a helper or not, but we were a part of the growth.
Right.
And that's the thing is, so your second question was, what does that look like for an exit? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So what, you know, as Conserv owning 25% of, you know, these multiple businesses, mm-hmm. and, you know, one of these bigger players comes in and wants to make this purchase.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that, you know, they're going to want to buy the I don't know how
portfolio.
They're not going to want to buy just Conserv's portion. They're going to want to buy the whole thing.
You're exactly right. Well, that's what makes it so valuable.
Right.
Is a bunch of people that are experts, you know, all a part of an organization. So for us, you know, we wouldn't even look at a business, an individual branch, for instance, as being sellable, meaning it can actually be purchased by a larger firm, unless it can work without the owner. So we have specific principles in place there in order for us to even add that into the portfolio officially and say, hey, this is like, let's say in 5 years from now, we have 50 locations and they're each doing $1 million a year. And so we're doing $50 million a year of revenue. But then we have 10 locations that are only doing $200,000 a year. Hmm. Those 10, we're not even going to include in the portfolio because $200,000 a year per location is not enough. Because that $200,000 location probably can't have more than just the owner doing all the work.
Right. So
in order for it to be sellable, the owner cannot be doing all of the work. In fact, the owner can't be doing any of the work.
Right.
The owner, instead, what has to happen is we have to have a local manager that's running the business. We have to have a salesperson that's doing all of the sales. We have to have technicians that are doing all of the work. And instead, the owner is simply just that. He's an owner. He's just on the sidelines. He's there to support. He's there to help out. And he's more of like more of a shareholder. So over time, our intention is, you know, if we partner with your business, and again, this goes back to that due diligence and that initial conversation of what do you want? What is your goal? And once we can identify that goal, then we know. But I would say that most people find it pretty thrilling to know that They have a manager that maybe has a little bit of equity in the business. We give them a little bit of equity, and he runs that business for them. And you don't have to worry about it. It's being taken care of. He manages the employees. He makes sure that that revenue's coming in. He makes sure that it's profitable because he's getting a little cut of the profit as well. And he's able to run the business without you. Because if you are doing everything, it's not attractive for a big business to buy.
Right.
I know for a fact I would have not been able to sell the couple of businesses that I have if I was doing everything, because it's extremely risky that way. Because if the customers are just like, where's Kyle? Well, Kyle's always the one for years now. Kyle's the guy. He takes the calls. He does everything. And now Kyle's not here anymore. Well, there's a huge risk there if you're going to put a lot of money into that.
Right.
So rather than doing that, we have to make sure that the people, the employees, are the ones that are running the business, not the owner. That doesn't mean the owner can't have a little bit of influence in guidance, but ultimately his guidance is going to be not that much different from my guidance. It's not going to be that much different from the other owner's guidance and the other owners and the other owners. We're all going to be on the same team and all have the same shared ideas and the same principles to make sure that we're all successful.
Right.
So I think that answers your question.
So another question is around, like, and I don't know how much of this stuff is public, but like you talked about the critter control when they sold, or True Tech.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of idea, or maybe there's been a more recent sale? I think in your interview with Andrew, your podcast with Andrew, he talked about a company that up in the Northeast, like that had maybe some New York operations that they sold to Orkin or one of the bigger companies.
You're talking about Cat's Eye.
Yeah, that's it.
Service Master.
Do you have a sense of what the value from some of those bigger transactions on a? I
do know.
Well, and
so I'm not gonna say specifically, because I think some of this is private. So I'm not gonna name a company name.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into trouble. But I do know. So I told you. So a smaller business in our industry is probably going to sell for 1 to 3 times profit. Right. As you get bigger, the value is obviously going to go up because of the size. But it's being so there's a multiple there, right? 1 to 3 times profit.
Right.
So when you get over I would say when you get over that $3 million range, it's going to go up from there. It's going to be closer to 4 to 8 times profit when you get in that range. And that information has been given to me specifically from an investment banker who does a lot of deals in the pest control space.
Right.
Not in the wildlife control space. There's not an investment banker that focuses on, and an investment banker, for those of you who don't know, this is someone who specifically goes out and markets big opportunities to buyers of companies. So, Terminex, Orkin, these big players out there, they're building relationships with big buyers, private equity companies,
right.
Things like that. But yeah, when you get to that certain size, you start trading, you start selling for a higher multiple. And the reason why is it has to do with what I said earlier. The owner is less involved.
Right.
In order for an operation to run smoothly over $3 million in revenue, the owner probably can't be involved with everything. He's definitely not doing all the services. He's definitely not doing all of the sales. He might be doing some of the sales. Mm-hmm. He's probably wearing a manager hat or two. But as you get into higher ranges, so, I know of a company that sold for, I think they sold for $12 million, and they were doing $9 million of revenue. It was a wildlife company. and that company is probably profiting about 20%. So 9 million times 20%, 12 million divided by $1.8 million a year in profit. So they sold it 7 times.
Right.
So 7 times profit. So let's talk about, let's say a company were to partner with us. So what does that look like? Well, today you might be earning 30 to 40% or even more, 50 or even 60% of profit of revenue, because maybe you don't have any employees and you're doing everything yourself. So as you grow, that can't continue.
Right.
It's just not you're not going to continue to make 40, 50% of your revenue as profit. So as you get bigger, I would say, and it depends on how involved you want to be. The more involved you want to be, the higher your profit's going to be. The less involved you're going to be, the lower your profit is. And it's because you have to replace yourself with somebody else.
Right.
I got to hire somebody. So I would say when you get around the $400,000 range, and if you hire a manager to manage the business rather than you're still obviously able to manage the business, but you have somebody else there to handle a lot of the things that you just don't want to handle or feel like it's more beneficial for them to handle. You're probably going to drop down to around 30%, I would say. 20 to 30% is probably a realistic goal. So today, let's say you partner with us, you're only doing $200,000 of revenue. We get you to $1 million, or maybe we only get you to $500,000. Let's just keep it simple. We get you to $500,000, so that's $100,000 a year of profit. So let's say, if you were to sell on your own, you're probably lucky to get $300,000 for your business.
Right.
Whereas you were to sell with us, you get $700,000.
Right.
Or more, or $800,000, or maybe even $1 million.
Right.
So that's the big difference.
Yeah, you're leveraging that scale.
You're leveraging scale, which is the whole idea. And that's not the whole idea, but that's where it makes it really beneficial. And now we're getting a piece of that, right? But you're still able to get more than you would otherwise.
Right.
And let's look at it the other way. Okay, well, what happens if we don't sell? Well, then nothing happens. We just keep growing. We keep growing the business, and we keep helping each other. I think there's a lot of value of being a part of a big network of everybody's, it's a network of wildlife control companies where we're all able to bounce ideas off each other, and it benefits everybody. You go on to a Facebook group full of different wildlife control companies. There's potentially going to be wildlife control companies in that group that service the same exact footprint that you service. Mm-hmm. And it's great if everybody's doing better and and we're growing the wildlife control industry as a whole. But when that local company is using the exact same tricks that you are, there's a chance where you're really just hurting yourself. Where if you're going in there and telling secrets about how you're growing your business and other people are doing the same things, there's a chance that it could hurt your business, right. Potentially, maybe not. Whereas if you are on a group discussion with a bunch of people that all are with the same company, they're all shareholders of the same big company, and they all service different areas, well, I think that's a lot more benefit. I mean, if you had the option, do I talk with all my competitors, or do I talk with people that are in different regions, but we're all kind of a part of the same group of companies? Which one would you pick? You would probably pick the latter, right? I want to talk to people that aren't in my region, mm-hmm. But may still deal with the same specific problems that I have, and we're all in this together, and we're all trying to go the same direction. So it's a lot more beneficial for everybody that way. Because now, not only am I learning something for myself, but I'm able to help this guy that's 2,000 miles away in a different time zone. And I just helped him out. So, we can all lift each other up.
Makes sense. No, like I said, yeah.
And this model, too, this is the first time that I've ever seen anybody do this model in this space. But this model is being done in small sectors of the pest control space, specifically the door knocking side, where people are going door to door selling pest control. Apparently that's happening, I've heard. And that's also exactly how, as far as the partnership model, that's kind of how Outback Steakhouse does their restaurants, I learned. Of all places.
Right.
So the people that are running those individual restaurants, they are an owner of that specific Outback Steakhouse. It is a franchise in a way, but it's not technically a franchise. So
right, and I hadn't thought about that, but talking about the critter control and that being franchises, I mean, you own that individual franchise, but I guess it's not the same as owning a business in that when it's sold, you don't get the.
Well, look at it this way. Let's say, and not the same. Look, I hope if you work for Critter Control, you don't think that we're against you, because I love Critter Control. I think y'all are a great company. I know several owners of Critter Control operations. But if you own Critter Control, and please reach out to me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain Rollins, who owns Critter Control, doesn't want you selling your Critter Control branch to Terminex, because they're a direct competitor. Right. You can't go out and sell it to one of Rollins' competitors.
Right.
The only person that can buy that business has to be an individual, or Rollins themselves will buy it from you. And that doesn't give you a whole lot of options, because if you're only selling your business to an individual, just a regular average Joe that wants to work in the industry, there is no way in heck you're going to make the same amount of money that you would be able to otherwise.
Right.
If you had the freedom to sell it to anybody, well, you're going to make more money.
Yeah.
But obviously Rollins isn't going to pay you a premium because you don't have any other choice.
Mm-hmm.
So not that they're greedy, but it just makes perfect business sense. They
right.
have set prices for set things.
Yeah.
Whereas, and you sell to an individual, same thing. That's going to be a different type of sale, and you aren't going to be able to get the multiple of profit that you would be if you're a part of a bigger company.
Right.
So.
It makes sense, and like I said, that's why I wanted to kind of talk with you more about it personally, and I thought, and I appreciate you being willing to share, because I think there's probably some people that are going to get some interest from it. So, is it, first off, anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
Oh God, I don't think so. I mean, I think at the end of the day, for me, I've been in this industry now for, as far as like urban wildlife control, for 13 years. Or 12 years, almost 13 years. And I love the industry so much. I live it every day. And more than anything, I've found that over the years of having lots of salespeople and lots of technicians and having lots of employees in an office environment, which we don't operate that way anymore. I don't have an office. We all work remotely. We do have an office. We only use it for training, though. So we're not all together all the time. But, there was a time where we were together very, very often in an office environment. But I get a lot of joy out of training. I get a lot of joy specifically out of sales training. And I love wildlife control, but I also really love business. And I read about business, and I just consume it day and night. And I think it's really, really cool when we can partner with a company and see them grow very quickly. And I really enjoy it when they reach back out to me and say, hey, man, thank you so much. Like, you really turned this thing around. Or maybe they were struggling and they were
right.
failing. Like, I don't know what to do. This is going wrong. This is going wrong. We say, hey, back up. Let's take a look at things. And we look at things and we say, oh, this is all you need to do. And they're like, oh, wow, that was too easy. So, you just can't get 12 years of experience overnight. You might be working in the industry for 12 years, but if you haven't been running a company for 12 years, those are two very different hats. And, not only myself, I have regional managers who have far more experience than I have in much bigger companies. And we're all on the same page, and we're a God-fearing company, and we have good intentions, we want to make sure that we're, number one, we want to disrupt the industry. We want to create as much merger and acquisition activity in our industry as possible, because we believe it's going to lift up the industry overall. I think a lot of us wildlife control companies are getting the short end of the stick right now, and I would really like to change that. And I think that if we get out there and we really start getting involved with each other's businesses, we can lift each other up and we can help each other. I just met a company the other day who's very small, but gave me an unbelievable idea, so that's going to be able to help tons of businesses in our industry. So, there's a lot to be said for helping each other. And I think, most of my business career has been focused on just me. Like, how do I, when you first start your business, you're like, I just need to pay my bills.
Right.
And then after that, it's like, okay, now I just got to maintain this thing. And it takes so much work. And I guess there eventually comes a time where you just start coasting a little bit and it's not so hard. And that's kind of where we've gotten to this year, is now we can just kind of coast. But I also want to grow like crazy, and I want to help people. I want to help our customers. I want to help our national accounts have a better options, because there's not many options out there. If you're a Home Depot or a Lowe's or Walmart, there's only so many companies that they'll do business with, because there's really not a lot of national companies.
Right.
So I want to be able to give more options out there to those national providers, and help as many people as possible that wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise. There's nobody else in our industry that's doing this. I wouldn't mind if there was. I think that, whenever you get a lot of like-minded people together under one roof, a lot of good stuff happens. And, that's what we want to do. And, I think we can all make a little bit of money as well, and be better off. And you don't have to look at this as, oh, well, I don't want to sell in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. Well, then don't sell. You don't have to sell. It's not a requirement. That's all part of that operating agreement. But it certainly is nice to have that option too. Because right. I'll tell you this too. There's a lot of wildlife control businesses that were on the market probably the past 5 years that never found a buyer. That there was a guy that's wanting to retire, and he couldn't find a company that would buy him. Nobody's looking. Right. So we want to change that. We want to become the go-to buyer if you do want to retire, or at least find you a buyer if you're ready to sell out, or if you just want to make more money and be able to provide better for your family through multiple sales, or just growing your business. We can help you with that as well. So there's just so many different ways to do this, and I think that working together, we can make wildlife control a lot better for everybody.
It makes sense to me.
Good deal.
Well, if somebody is interested, how do they get in touch with you?
So you can go to our website to learn a little bit more. Go to conservwildlifeservices.com/grow with us. Just click on that tab, or you can just simply shoot us an email, growth@conservmail.com. That's growth@conservmail.com.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate the time, and we'll be in touch. I hope you get some good response from this. So.
Thanks, Chris. Man, I really appreciate everything that you do for us, and it's been really nice. Really enjoyed it.